Right. So you were stationed in South Florida there with this crew and this boat, and your particular assignments were to do what?
Well, we would go on 3-day patrols 3 times a month. We'd have 9 days a month underway, and we were out there. That was really when the whole drug smuggling was really kicking off.
81 time period?
Yeah, 79 to 81. Mm-hmm. Just 78, 79 is when the whole drug smuggling really kicked off. And then as well, that's when a lot of migrant activity also, migrant activity started.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about some of the, your work out in the high seas there, chasing down the drug boats, and how did you actually, come to capture, I think, 40 major drug seizures in your career?
Well, I had 40 in my career on 6 different ships. But we had 21 just on that 2 years, and the mode of smuggling, and it was mostly marijuana at that time, was big loads of marijuana would be on a Jamaican, like a 100-foot Jamaican coastal freighter, and they'd sail from Jamaica up the old Bahama Channel, and they'd get over south of Bimini and on the Bahama Banks over there, and then they would offload to sport fishermen or other U.S.-bound pleasure craft. So you'd either be trying to find a mothership, or you'd be sitting off the coast of Florida, east or Miami or Fort Lauderdale or West Palm, waiting for these guys to come in and trying to catch them.
Wow! So like that TV show Miami Vice, you were one of those guys out in the real time, getting it done, seizing all those things. So walk us through maybe a couple of times. I know we've got some incredible pictures of your action out there, actually using weapons to bring these people to justice.
Absolutely. If the Coast Guard on the high seas has the right, has the legal position to be able to approach a vessel and ask them to stop, to be inspected. And if they don't stop, then we could make them stop, which on a couple occasions we had to resort to that. And one time we had a coastal freighter who wouldn't stop, and we resorted to 50 caliber machine guns across its bow, and that made him stop.
That's what you call bringing them to justice, right there.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
That must have been something.
Yeah.
So walk us through that. When you actually, I believe one boat you actually had to chase for quite a long time before he decided to pull over.
That's correct. We had another case. It was about a 35-foot fishing boat from Miami that we intercepted east of Bimini, and on our patrol boat, we could outrun him, but we could not outturn him. He could turn inside of us. So every time we catch up to him, he'd turn away. So after hours of doing this, we got permission from our superiors in Miami, and we shot across his bow, and he still didn't stop. So then we resort to what's called disabling fire, where we actually fire into the boat to get the engines to stop, and they stop.
Yeah. That works pretty well, I would imagine.
As well, yes, that's correct.
So now you get alongside the ship, you board the ship, and then at that point, I assume you have sort of armed guys ready for anything.
That's correct. Yeah, our boarding team goes over, and we will conduct the inspection of the vessel. If we find illegal contraband, or if we find contraband, we will test it to make sure it is what it is, and then we will arrest the people, collect evidence, take the seized vessel into port for further prosecution.
Did you ever have to get into physical confrontations with these people? Obviously, these are pretty desperate people. They've been caught now, and did you ever have any of those situations?
And surprisingly, no. And the way it works, though, it had to do with the sentencing challenge. Once you got caught with drugs, you're caught, and you're going to spend so much time in jail. If you ratchet up the crime by accosting a federal officer or shooting or something like that, then all of a sudden you're going to spend a whole lot more time. So for the majority, the challenge was finding the boat, getting this, and once they stopped, that was it. Yeah, it was pretty much it was up.
So now you've seized a boat. It's full of marijuana or cocaine or whatever it may be. Now, how do you get that boat back to shore with the captives?
That was always actually one of the more fun things we got to do, because my boarding teams would take the people we arrested, bring them on our Coast Guard cutter, and then my guys got to drive that boat back. And so that became a a nice event for them, a nice break to enjoy driving a big, nice sport fisherman with good food and drink on board.
Right. So,
and to follow us back into Miami or West Palm, wherever we brought the seizure back to.
Right. Well, I know in today's world of high security and actually protecting our port here at Port Canaveral, having that experience is an absolutely incredible insight into what it's really like out there protecting areas like this.
Yes, I do have extensive experience in not only small boat but large vessel container smuggling activities, and I'm well versed in what both Coast Guard but specifically Customs and Border Protection do to inspect and ensure that the containers that come into this port are safe and not filled with contraband.
I imagine, yeah, that experience gives you a unique insight. Now, walk us through, 1980, 81, I believe, the incredible crisis there in Cuba, the Mariel Boatlift. That was from a port in Cuba, I believe, and Fidel Castro said, yes, you can have our 125,000 people
Right.
over to you. Jimmy Carter let them come in, and your job was to actually help them go back to their country.
We, shortly by happenstance, out of West Palm Beach, we would once every 3 months go down to Key West and spend a week down there to relieve the boat that was down there, just to give him a break, to do some maintenance, and we got a chance to go somewhere else. We happened in 1980, April 23rd, to be on patrol in the Florida Straits off of Key West and intercept the first boatload of Cuban migrants. The first 25 of the 125,000 happened to get picked up by the Cape Shoalwater.
Wow, that must have been an incredible, that's obviously history there. And so when you come across a boat like that, tell us what that was like for those people inside the boat, and how did you find them, and what kind of condition were they actually in?
Of course, we found big boats, small boats. There was rafts, there was inner tubes. I mean, we found migrants in just about anything that floated. You'd find them out there, which is, that in itself is quite disturbing and really worrisome, because if you don't find them, then what happens to them? You have that challenge. But we would, once you found the boat, they want us to find them, so we'd pick the people up and put them on the Cape Shoalwater, and then we would take their boats in tow to bring them back to the States. During that time, when our doors were open, then the challenge was to safely find all these people and bring them in. Of course, in the middle of that, the policy changed, and then they were no longer allowed to come in, and so then we had to stop people from going to get them and stop them from coming in. So it was a challenge.
That was a duality there.
Yes,
So
yeah.
Tell us about the conditions, though. I mean, these people are obviously desperate. Some of them were criminals, obviously some of them were from mental institutions, but they're also regular people who were trying to leave Cuba and come here. Tell us about the conditions you found them in on some of these vessels.
It was, most of them were in reasonably good shape, but occasionally, again, we would find rafts, nothing more than wooden pieces of wood put together with tires, inner tubes, keeping them afloat, and you'd find 3 generations of people. You'd find grandparents, parents, and kids, all in a family, on a boat, and your heart goes out to them. It's a safety type of issue. You want to save them. You don't want them. Anybody who would be desperate enough to do that, you wanted to make sure you picked them up.
I understand that sometimes there was as many as 500-600 people on a fairly small vessel, all sort of packed in like sardines.
Yeah, we had one sailboat that had over 200 people on a 42-foot sailboat.
Wow.
And people on the top, and they were all below decks, and it's remarkable. And the people on the top they'd be fine, they'd come up, and then the people down the bottom, we would find people unconscious or deceased.